What if I told you that the very habits keeping you comfortable are the same ones silently destroying your power, your presence, and your respect? What if I told you that people are already judging you, and not because of your looks, your status, or your success, but because of 5 toxic behaviors you probably don't even realize you're carrying? See, respect isn't something that just appears because you want it. It's earned. It's built. It's tested in silence and proven in action. And until you confront what's holding you back, you'll keep wondering why you're overlooked, underestimated, and dismissed. So listen closely, because if you want to become someone others can't ignore, then these 5 habits, these 5 silent killers, have got to go. Now, the first one, excuses. If you're still blaming your past, your parents, your partner, your boss, your ex, your lack of time, your lack of energy, let me be real with you, nobody respects that. We all go through pain. We all have setbacks. But people respect those who show up anyway. People admire the ones who take responsibility, who look life in the face and say, "This is mine now." When you make excuses, you give your power away. And if you keep giving your power away, why would anyone hand you theirs? Respect follows ownership. So start owning it all, the wins, the losses, and everything in between. Excuses are the armor of the weak. They feel protective, they feel safe. But in reality, they keep you small. Every time you say, "I didn't have time, it wasn't my fault," or "they should have helped me," what you're really saying is, "I'm not in control." And people can feel that. They may not say it out loud, but they start to pull back. They start to see you as someone who talks, not someone who delivers. Because the truth is, respect doesn't go to the person who had it the hardest. It goes to the one who kept going anyway, and that's what people miss. Making excuses might win you sympathy, but it will never earn you respect. Sympathy fades, people forget your story, but what they remember, what they respect, is how you chose to rise in spite of it. You want to lead? Then stop outsourcing your power. Stop blaming traffic, bad timing, your childhood, your boss, your burnout. Because as long as you're making excuses, you're giving away your voice, your influence, your edge. And no one follows a person who won't own their choices. Respect follows those who take full responsibility, even when it hurts, even when no one's watching, even when they have every reason not to. Gossip is a silent self-assassination. The moment you open your mouth to tear someone else down, you reveal more about yourself than you ever do about them. It's a broadcast of your own insecurity, your own fear, your own lack of control. And here's what most people miss. When you gossip, you think you're building alliances, but what you're actually doing is building doubt. Because the person listening to you knows deep down, if you'll talk about them, you'll talk about me. That's how trust breaks. That's how respect crumbles. People may smile in the moment. They may laugh along, but inside, they're filing that information away. And they are quietly deciding you are not someone they can confide in, not someone they can rise with, not someone who holds any real weight. You want to command a room. Learn to guard other people's dignity, even when they're not there. Hold boundaries in conversations that go low, because the most powerful people, the ones who are truly respected, don't need to speak to diminish others. They rise by protecting what's sacred: integrity, restraint, and self-respect. And when you carry that, people safe around you, they feel loyalty toward you. And that, more than anything, is what builds respect that lasts. Complaining is the anthem of those who've surrendered their power. And it's easy, right? It's easy to blame the system, the weather, the workload, the people around you. But when all you do is complain, what you're really doing is telling the world, "I have no solutions, I have no resilience, and I'm waiting for someone else to fix it for me." And that energy repels respect, because people don't follow the loudest voice. They follow the strongest one. The one that stays calm in chaos. The one that doesn't need to whine because they're too busy finding the way forward. Respect is not built through emotion. It's built through composure. So every time you feel the urge to complain, ask yourself, am I venting or am I shrinking? Am I speaking from strength or surrender? Because if all you do is point out problems without taking action, people will tune you out. They'll stop valuing your voice, because your words don't bring change. They just bring noise. The people who earn real respect walk through fire without narrating every burn. They handle pressure without needing the room to validate their pain. And that self-control, that grit in silence, makes people take notice, makes them lean in, makes them trust that when things go wrong, you won't. Seeking validation is one of the fastest ways to lose respect. Because the more you chase approval, the more people sense you don't have any of your own. And let me tell you, when you constantly look around the room to see who's clapping for you, you're already telling the world that your value depends on someone else's reaction. That's not strength. That's not presence. That's dependence. And respect never follows the dependent. It follows the grounded, the unshakable, the ones who don't need to be liked to stand tall. You want to command a room. Then stop performing for applause. Stop fishing for compliments. Stop needing someone to tell you're enough before you decide to act like it. The people who truly get respected are the ones who walk into any space knowing who they are before anyone else gets to decide. They don't need the spotlight because they are the standard. They don't need recognition to stay consistent. And that confidence, it's not loud, it's not arrogant, it's not posted online for validation. It's quiet. It's internal, and it's deadly powerful. Because when people sense you don't need anything from them to stand firm, that's when they start respecting you without you having to ask. Procrastination is the silent killer of potential, and worse, it's a public display of unreliability. Every time you say, "I'll do it later," what you're actually saying is, "I can't be counted on right now." And people pay attention to that. They notice when you delay, when you show up half-ready, when you miss the deadline, when you talk more than you deliver. It doesn't matter how talented you are or how good your intentions sound. If you're inconsistent, you lose respect, because the people who are respected most aren't always the smartest or the most gifted. They're the ones who show up. Every time. On time. No excuses. When you procrastinate, you become your own barrier. You sabotage your own name. You tell the world that pressure controls you more than purpose does. But when you act, especially when it's hard, especially when it's uncomfortable, that's where credibility is built. That's where people start to trust that your word means something. And trust is the root of respect. So if you want to be seen as someone who matters, then follow through. Finish what you start. Handle your business before it becomes someone else's problem. Because the people who wait for the right mood to work are always ruled by weakness. But the ones who work through the resistance, they're the ones people learn not to question. Respect isn't a given. It's not something you're owed because of your age, your title, your experience, or how loud you can talk in a room. Respect doesn't care how long you've been around. It cares how you carry yourself when it counts. So many people walk through life expecting respect just because they've been through pain, or because they've worked hard, or because they think they've earned it by default. But here's the truth: the world doesn't operate on your expectations, it responds to your energy. If you walk into every space demanding respect without offering any, you've already lost the game. Because people don't follow your history, they follow your behavior. How you speak, how you show up, how you treat others when no one's looking, that's the currency of respect. And it has to be deposited daily. Every interaction, every decision, every moment you choose character over ego, consistency over comfort. That's where the real respect starts to grow. It's not about what you think you deserve. It's about what you prove through presence, action, and discipline. People won't always tell you they've lost respect for you. They won't send you a text. They won't make a scene. They won't call you out. And that's exactly why it's dangerous. Because the loss of respect is quiet. It's subtle. It's in the shift of tone, in the delayed responses, in the way their eyes don't meet yours like they used to. It's in the silence after you speak, and by the time you notice, it's already too late. That's why your habits matter. That's why your behavior speaks before you ever say a word. People are watching how you carry yourself, how you treat others, how you manage pressure, and they're making decisions about you every single day without saying a word. Respect doesn't disappear in explosions, it dies in moments. When you interrupt too much, when you're late one too many times, when you say you'll do something and don't, when your values shift with convenience. You won't always get feedback. Most people won't confront you. They'll just stop trusting you, stop admiring you, stop listening. So if you think you can cut corners and no one's noticing, think again. People remember how you made them feel, and they carry that memory long after the conversation ends. Power is not always loud. Real respect doesn't follow the person who shouts the most, dominates the room, or bulldozes their way through every conversation. That might grab attention, sure, but not the kind that lasts. Not the kind that builds trust. Not the kind that makes people lean in when you speak, even if you're speaking quietly. Because real leadership, real presence, isn't about being heard. It's about being felt, and that comes from restraint, from control, from the strength to not react when provoked, from the power to stay silent when silence says more than noise ever could. See, anyone can talk, anyone can make noise, but very few people can sit in a room, read the energy, and choose their moment with precision. Respected people don't blurt out every opinion. They don't chase attention. They don't argue just to win. They calculate. They listen more than they speak. They understand that every word has weight, and when you throw your words around carelessly, they lose value. But when you speak with clarity, intention, and purpose, people start to hang on every sentence. Because they know when you talk, you mean it. You've thought it through. You're not just reacting. You're leading. There's a discipline and restraint that most people never master. We live in a world where everything screams for attention. Social media thrives on outbursts, hot takes, instant reactions. But in real life, in the real world where trust and credibility are built, not likes and clicks, restraint is power. The ability to pause, to observe, to respond instead of react. That's what separates the impulsive from the impactful. And you better believe people notice the difference. They can tell when you're controlled by ego versus when you're grounded in purpose. You want to earn respect. Learn to listen to people without needing to prove you're smarter. Learn to sit across from someone who's wrong and not tear them down just to feel right. That's real power. That's emotional intelligence. That's restraint. And here's the thing, restraint is not weakness. It's not passivity. It's not about silence for the sake of silence. It's about being so in control of yourself that no one else can control you. It's about choosing when and how to assert your voice because you understand timing. You understand the energy of the room. You understand that leadership isn't about dominance. It's about direction. And you can't direct others if you can't even direct yourself. Think about the people you truly respect. The ones who walk in and shift the room without saying a word. The ones who don't need to prove themselves because they already know who they are. That's restraint. That's the energy of someone who's done the inner work, who's learned how to manage their emotions, who doesn't let anger, pride, or ego run the show. Because when ego leads, respect leaves. Every single time, and I get it, restraint isn't glamorous. It's not flashy. It doesn't get the same instant validation as speaking out. But the most respected people I've ever encountered, from intelligence agencies to private boardrooms to high-level negotiations, were the ones who said the least, but said it best. They didn't posture. They didn't overshare. They didn't waste breath. They observed, they assessed, and when they spoke, everyone stopped to listen. Why? Because restraint built anticipation. Because discipline created trust. It's not about suppressing who you are. It's about mastering who you are. Can you stay calm when someone disrespects you? Can you keep your cool when the pressure's on? Can you choose patience when everything in you wants to explode? That's the kind of self-mastery that earns respect, not just from others, but from yourself. Because you know you didn't fold. You didn't react. You didn't give away your power to someone else's behavior. You stayed in control. You stayed you. And let's talk about humility, because that's part of restraint too. Real restraint requires a deep sense of humility. The kind that doesn't need to prove anything. The kind that doesn't walk into the room trying to compete with everyone, but trying to understand, connect, and elevate the energy around them. When you're humble, you're not quiet because you're afraid. You're quiet because you're focused. You're absorbing everything. You're learning. You're watching. And people pick up on that. They sense that you're not in the room to steal the spotlight. You're there to bring value. And that shift in energy, that's what earns deep, lasting respect. Because you're not performing. You're rooted. You're clear. You're intentional. Restraint also shows up in how you handle conflict. Anyone can yell, anyone can lash out, anyone can clap back. But it takes a powerful person to hold the line, to assert without aggression, to set boundaries without disrespect, to stay steady when someone else loses control. That's not just emotional intelligence. That's leadership. And that's where real respect lives. Not in how loud you can be, but in how composed you can stay when everything around you is trying to pull you off center. And don't confuse restraint with silence in the face of injustice. Restraint doesn't mean being passive. It doesn't mean tolerating disrespect. It means knowing when and how to respond to have maximum impact. Because sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is speak. But even then, you speak with intention. You speak to shift, not to shame. You speak from strength, not ego. You speak because you've chosen your moment, not because you needed to be right or to win. The people who build real influence in this world are the ones who know how to manage their internal world. That's the truth most people don't want to hear. You want respect. Control yourself. Because if you can't manage your emotions, your impulses, your need to dominate, you will lose people's trust. Maybe not immediately, but eventually. And they won't always tell you why. They'll just stop including you, stop seeking your advice, stop following your lead. Because they know, deep down, you're reactive. And nobody trusts reactive. They trust stable. They trust consistent. They trust people who operate from values, not vanity. So if you're someone who talks just to fill space, if you interrupt just to feel heard, if you dominate every conversation just to feel important, it's time to stop and check yourself. Ask yourself, why do I need to be the loudest voice in the room? What am I really trying to prove? Because when you're secure in who you are, you don't need to prove anything. You are the proof. And that's the difference. That's what makes people respect you without you ever asking for it. Restraint is the secret weapon of the strongest people you'll ever meet. It's quiet, it's precise, it's strategic, and when you learn how to master it, you don't just earn respect, you own it. Your energy introduces you before you ever speak. And the truth is, the way you carry yourself, the way you walk into a room, the way you respond to stress, the way you handle people, that energy sets your tone louder than anything you could say. If you show up bitter, negative, constantly frustrated, that's the energy you're putting out. And energy is contagious. People feel it, they absorb it, and whether they realize it or not, they start to distance themselves. Not because they don't like you, but because your energy doesn't feel safe. It doesn't feel strong, it doesn't feel grounded. And people don't respect chows, they respect control. They respect the kind of presence that calms the room, not stirs it up. You want to be respected. Then protect your energy like your life depends on it, because in many ways it does. Your energy is your credibility. Strength, it tells the world whether you're someone who can handle pressure or someone who falls apart in the storm. It tells people whether you're reactive or strategic, grounded or unpredictable. Every time you open your mouth to complain, every time you respond with sarcasm, every time you bring pessimism to a solution-focused room, you chip away at the trust people have in you. And once that trust is gone, respect follows right behind it. What people don't realize is that your energy walks ahead of you. Before you've even said a word, people are reading you. They're picking up on your facial expressions, your body language, your tone. And when your energy is clean, when it's calm, composed and intentional, people instinctively feel they can rely on you. That's how leaders are born, not from fancy speeches, but from consistent energy. From showing up as someone who brings clarity, not confusion. Someone who brings presence, not pressure. And don't misunderstand this for being fake or robotic. That's not what this is. You're human. You feel things. But the difference between someone who's respected and someone who's dismissed is the ability to regulate. Not suppress, but regulate. What you project into the room. If your personal storms keep spilling into your professional spaces, if your emotions bleed into every decision, every reaction, every interaction, people are going to stop viewing you as someone who can be trusted with more. Because energy doesn't lie. You can say all the right words. But if your presence doesn't match, no one's buying it. Respect comes from alignment. When your energy, your words, and your actions are all in sync. And here's the part that most people don't want to hear. You don't get to show up with draining energy and expect others to compensate for it. That's not how it works. You want to be taken seriously. Then take responsibility for what you bring into every space. Be the one who holds the standard. Be the one who brings clarity when everyone else is spiraling. Be the one who listens before reacting, who speaks with intention, who stands still when others are flailing. Because in a world addicted to noise, grounded energy is rare, and it's magnetic. And it's not just about how others see you, it's about how you see yourself. When your energy is focused, when it's disciplined, when it's rooted in purpose, you move differently. You stop needing validation, you stop reacting to every little thing, you start choosing your responses, your environments, your people, with purpose. That's power, and people feel that, they respond to it, not because you're louder, but because your energy says, I've done the work. I'm not here to prove anything. I'm here to lead. So check your energy, check your tone, check your attitude, because if you don't manage the energy you bring, it will manage the respect you lose. And once you lose that respect, getting it back takes far more than just words. It takes transformation. Be the one whose presence lifts the room, not weighs it down. Be the one people remember for how they felt in your space, calm, strong, and certain. Because that is the kind of energy people follow. And the kind of energy that earns unshakable respect. Respect isn't built in the spotlight. It's forged in solitude. It's created in the moments when no one is watching, when there's no applause, no validation, no one to impress but yourself. That's where discipline shows up. That's where your habits either make you or expose you. Because people might not see what you're doing in private, but they will absolutely feel the result of it in public. You want to be someone others look up to. Then start by doing the work behind closed doors. Not because someone's keeping score, but because you are. And that's the kind of standard that earns real respect. It's easy to perform when eyes are on you. It's easy to say the right things, wear the right face, play the part. But who are you when the cameras are off? When no one is checking in, when it's just you and your choices. That's the version of you that determines everything. Because when your private habits don't match your public image, people eventually feel the disconnect. They might not be able to name it, but they'll sense it. That's when trust starts to slip. That's when your leadership loses weight. Because people don't just respect who you pretend to be. They respect who you consistently are. You want to command respect in the real world. Then develop discipline in the unseen world. Wake up when you said you would. Keep the promises you make to yourself. Train your mind to finish what it starts. Push through resistance when motivation is gone. That's not about grinding to impress. It's about aligning your actions with your values, even when no one's clapping. Because that kind of consistency creates something rare, self-respect. And when you truly respect yourself, it changes how you move. You no longer tolerate distractions, excuses, or people who threaten your standard. You stop seeking permission. You stop chasing approval. You walk into the room already knowing your worth. And people feel that. They respond to that. Because that kind of inner discipline radiates outward. And don't be fooled. Your quiet discipline does show. It shows in how you carry yourself, in how you speak, in the way you handle pressure. It shows in the sharpness of your focus, in the confidence behind your calm, in the strength of your silence. People might not know the details of your private life, but they will see the result of your decisions. Your presence is the product of your patterns. So if you're showing up shaky, distracted, reactive, that's not about the moment. That's about your habits. And if you want different respect, build different habits. The world respects consistency. It respects people who show up the same way on a hard day that they do on an easy one. Not because they feel like it, but because they've trained themselves to do it anyway. And that training, it happens when no one is clapping. It happens when no one is watching. It happens when everyone else is resting and you're still building. That's the edge. That's what separates people who inspire from people who fade. And that's what makes someone unforgettable. Not their words, not their look, not their resume, but their discipline. The quiet kind, the real kind. So don't wait for the stage to develop your strength. Don't wait for validation to shape your values. You earn respect in the dark long before you ever shine in the light. Let your private discipline build your public power. Let the habits you keep in silence speak volumes when you enter the room. That's how you stop asking for respect and start living in a way that demands it without saying a single word. If you want real respect, the kind that lasts, the kind that can't be taken or faked, then you need to become the kind of person who naturally commands it. Not through noise, not through force, but through discipline, restraint, integrity, and ownership. The world is already watching. People are already deciding who you are based on how you show up, how you carry yourself, how you treat others, and how you handle pressure. So if you're still making excuses, spreading gossip, complaining, chasing validation, procrastinating, expecting respect without earning it, ignoring how your energy impacts others, or hoping your private habits won't catch up with your public image, understand this: you're not invisible, and respect doesn't wait for you to get it together. You want to be taken seriously? Then take yourself seriously first. Upgrade your standards, eliminate the behaviors that shrink your presence, and lead yourself like someone worth following. Because when you do that, consistently, quietly, relentlessly, you won't need to ask for respect, you'll become it.